Well, hello again, everybody. This is John Norris at Trading Perspectives. As always, we have our good friend Sam Clement. Sam, say hello.
John, how are you doing?
Sam, I'm doing okay, and I hope you're doing okay.
I'm doing great.
Good. You know who I don't think's doing okay?
I've got a few guesses.
Well, I'm thinking really recently the head of the Republican Party is probably not doing so great. And guys, before you think we're going to get too political on this is really going to be really more of a commentary or discussion about just what the election results actually mean for society as a whole, as opposed to anything regarding any one of the two primary political parties. And also, I've got to say, anything that we say here today is our opinion only, and mine and Sam's, and not necessarily those of Oakworth Capital Bank, any of its associates, shareholders, anything like that. Fair enough, Sam?
Fair enough.
All right. Unless you just really don't follow American news or American politics, everyone by now probably knows that recently, in New York City, the gentleman by the name of Zohan Mamdani won the mayoral election and become the next mayor. And even more than that, you saw just huge victories for the Democrat Party in races really across the country. Now, I can't really think of too many bright spots for the Republicans on that election day. So really the question is, what in the world does this mean for the population as a whole? But more importantly, kind of want to maybe focus in a little bit more on the election in New York. Because so many people up there are voting completely differently. When you consider Mr. Mamdani's primary economic platform, it's unlike anything that I think we've seen in a major election in the United States, at least in my lifetime, where flat out the primary candidate, the one that won, is talking really in a lot of ways about government taking over the means of production in some areas, even more so than normal. Things about services that for once you had to pay for, things like child care, then also government-run grocery stores and buses and just a whole lot of free stuff, rent controls, all of that. And the word socialism has been bandied about quite a bit here. That really makes one wonder whether or not, gosh, Sam, dare I say, does the American population still believe in the so-called American dream, which I would say the underpinnings of the American dream was capitalism to a degree, belief that you get to keep what you earn, and then also libertarianism to a degree where you kind of left other people alone and they left you alone by and large and in large part. Now, obviously, that's not necessarily the way it's always been, but for the most part, the American dream is if I work hard, I can reap what I sow and I can enjoy the fruits of my labor. And right now, taking a look at the elections that's happened, take a look at some of the promises a lot of politicians are throwing out around there. And I'm kind of wondering, do people still believe in the American dream?
I think in general people do, but we've talked about this for years, this trend. I mean, we've talked about it about the first Trump presidency, and it seems like a lot of these things are the same sentiment just swinging to both sides, the pendulum swinging both ways, and it's really, and we've talked about with the stock market, and it's this K-shaped economy, some people doing really well, other people doing really poorly, and really watching things drift away from them, these dreams that they thought they could have. Other people have done fantastically well, and people that don't hold assets aren't. And so this isn't new. This isn't something going on in the city of New York alone. It's a trend that has gone on, I'd say, for pre-COVID, but sped up significantly since COVID. And I think that's this trend that's going to continue. I don't think it stops with a far-left candidate in a New York City mayor election, and it could be a far-right candidate in another election somewhere. I just think when you get these inflationary environments, you have people that do really well with that, and you have people that don't, and it leads to people maybe giving up on the American dream.
Well, I mean, to that point, Pew Research last year in July of 2024 put out a paper based on some research they had done, and granted, Pew Research, a lot of people might argue it's a little bit right of center, and I would say it probably is, but it's not like crazy alt-right or anything like that. But they generally, while they present it pretty fairly, I think, is a little bit more pro-business than maybe some other think tanks. But even so, Pew Research in July of last year put out a report, an article, what have you, about whether or not the American dream is still alive and well in the United States. And according to them, in total, 53% of respondents said the American dream was alive and well. and 6% said that it was never existed. So 53% alive and well, 6% said never existed, which obviously the difference means that, well, it's not alive and well, but it did exist at one point, right? All right. Of that, 18 to 29, the youngest people that are supposed to be positive. I mean, we're going to set the world on fire. We're going to bow up and prance around. Bow up and prance around. I mean, I don't know exactly what that means, but I heard someone say that once. Well, there you have it. Only 39% of respondents in this age demographic said the American dream is alive and well. 9% said that it never existed. Not surprisingly, this changes as it goes up. The next decade, or the next 2 decades, 30 to 49, said 43% said the American dream is alive and well. So still kind of low. Mm-hmm. So people under the age of 50, by and large, I'd say, I'm going to round it. Roughly 40% of people under the age of 50 think the American dream is alive and well. Whereas all of a sudden, us old farts, Sam, over the age of 50 to 64, 61% of respondents said the American dream is alive and well. And those people that really 1 foot in, right? 1 foot in, 65 plus, 68% of those people said the American dream is alive and well. So clearly, right here, according to Pew Research data last year, there are some generational differences here. The generational differences meaning all that is the American dream is dead for younger people while still alive for older people.
Well, my thought reading this, and it's a pretty direct trend, right? You know, the numbers for the American dream's alive and well goes directly up the older you get, and vice versa. And so, but I think about this less of, okay, well, this is just people in their 18 to 29 age. I think of these age groups, 18 to 29 and 30 to 49, and think of the events that happened in pivotal years, especially in careers.
I certainly hope you're going to tell me about some of them.
Well, I think for the first one, 18 to 29, a lot of those people, it's COVID.
Yeah.
And again, to my point of what's happened in this post-COVID environment, you know, we saw this excess hiring and then the slowdown in hiring as the time AI is coming around, the stock market's booming. These 18 to 29 that are typically, on average, don't hold a lot of assets.
Yes.
And it's getting harder now to grow in your career. And so when we've talked about the K-shaped economy, it's that group that's in that next stage above them that has really captured a lot of this growth in asset prices and has really, you know, this has been a tailwind, where the 18 to 29, COVID has largely been a headwind for a lot of them.
Well, and then you had the people 30 to 49 that, I mean, heck, they were coming around right when the housing bubble burst.
That was going to be my point with that group is the housing bubble, you know, the Great Recession, the bailouts of the banks and people that did well or were okay after the fact, and a lot of people struggled. And you know,
so basically, you could say things have not been truly, I guess, normal since really the housing crisis.
Yeah, it's those. If you are in the age group where you saw, I mean, the banks get bailed out and people that took excessive risk and what have you, you know, escape with not a lot of pain.
Yeah.
And you just struggled to find a job and, you know, maybe lost money in your 401k and what have you. And
house is foreclosed on, and then these other people still get to pocket a lot.
That is still a pivotal, you know, the events matter with when they happened in your life to how pivotal they remain for the rest of your life. And so I just think it's to me, I read this as less of an indictment on the people age 18 to 29 and 30 to 49. And
to me, that's exactly what it is.
Specifically events that happen for these age brackets.
So their life experiences are telling them this.
Yeah.
Based on what they have seen and based on the results. Yeah, I mean, that white picket fence and the 2.5 kids and the having a steak on the weekend, that type of stuff seems a lot of pie in the sky for a lot of people, because you take a look now, and according to the National Association of Home Builders and according to really most real estate indices, housing affordability in the United States is next to nothing.
It's horrible.
Absolutely awful. I've read recently, and forget the source, but a number of places, please by all means Google it, says that the median age of first-time home buyers now is like 40. It's like 40. And that's not that old, but it sure is old to start building your equity in your first house.
Yeah.
That's pretty old. I think it was closer to 30 when I bought my first house. Granted, that's been forever ago, but I mean, even so, that's pushing it, man.
Well, and you got to think, going back to if you're in the 50 to 64, 65 plus, and you bought a home 30, 40 years ago, and it's, I get maybe the compounded growth rate's not amazing, but you bought these houses for 50, 100,000 and they're worth $1 million to $2 million plus. I mean,
Hey, who doesn't like that?
how is it? I mean, those people, it's probably hard to say the American dream isn't alive and well, right? You bought a home at a much more affordable time, even given the interest rates. People talk about 8 to 12% mortgages, whatever. They were still more affordable based on the average income back then. And so for those people, it is alive and well. For people 18 to 29, post-COVID, if you didn't buy a house pre-COVID, it has become significantly harder, if not impossible.
It's almost a pipe dream right now.
Right, and for several reasons, because people aren't selling, so there's not inventory, and people are bidding it up, and your income versus the cost of a mortgage is just outlandish.
And let's face it, I mean, according to a lot of what I read, home builders aren't building those huge detached single-family units, sort of starter homes, 2.5, 2-bedroom, two and 1.5 type stuff. The traditional American starter home, not a ton of money in those things.
Yeah,
for a home builder, so you're not seeing as many of them going on.
So if I am sitting here saying I haven't been able to afford a house and I don't see a world where I can right now, I haven't been able to save up a lot of assets, and we have one of the biggest bull markets for years essentially, and I haven't really participated in it all that much. I don't blame people that feel like this system isn't working for them. Whether it's right or wrong, it's hard to take that and not, understand why someone would want to shake things up.
Yeah.
I get the lack of maybe economic understanding with certain policies, but just back up on the sentiment for why people feel this way, and there is a logical reason to some of it.
Oh, I agree completely. And something, I mean, a lot of people benefited. I mean, 401k balances are up, and some people say you ought to be happy about that type of thing. But when you take a look really at the stark differences in these ages here, people over the age of 50, by and large, hey, American dream's alive and well. Under the age of 50, forget about it. And it's because these people, as you mentioned, have been through some of the worst experiences in the U.S. economy, really, since the Great Depression.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways. And they're finding it hard to build that nest egg, to build up their balances, build their balance sheet. Whereas other people, I mean, myself included, bought the house before the financial crisis, had the 401k going before all the worst case scenario, all that stuff. We benefited somewhat, maybe not as much as I would like, but even so, we benefited. Whereas people my kids' age, and you're a little bit older than my kids, but not by much, you're sitting there going, how in the hell am I ever going to be able to afford a house on Cherokee Road? Mm-hmm. That just seems so unattainable to me right now, and all that I get why people are thinking, hey, it's not really working so much this way. This seems a little bit too good to be true, but right now I'm in the mood to buy. It's too good to be true. And besides, and going to the New York example, the rent freezing that Mandami is promising, what do they care? They don't own the buildings. If I'm renting from some guy that keeps on jacking up the rate, and some politician comes in and says, hey, your rent's frozen for a couple of years, that sounds great to me, and I vote. Of course, I'm not thinking long-term about the lack of supply and all that stuff. New homes new units not going up, and that landlord's not going to make any improvements on the property, all that stuff. I don't care, because my rent's frozen for a couple of years, and I wasn't planning on living there any longer than 2 years anyway.
And I'll take it a step further. Even if you do understand issues that are coming down the road, what do I care? Yeah. I'm not invested in the system.
Yeah.
I don't own real estate. I don't own stocks. If you have no skin in the game, you don't care what
If I'm not an owner, I don't care.
Right. And that's, if you are not an owner, capitalism, the system, and the buy-in involves being able to grow your assets and what have you. I mean, it's a pivotal part of it. And so if you are completely removed from that system, who cares? If you say this is bad for the stock market, who cares? Bad for real estate, who cares?
This is bad for the bodega owners, who cares?
Yeah. If you have no skin in the game about anything, you're not incentivized to care.
If I rent, I work 9 to 5, don't see a lot of upwards mobility because boomers aren't getting out of the way, and the rent just keeps going up. My utility bill keeps on going up. I don't see any light at the end of the tunnel. Why do I care if some developers make their money back?
Yeah.
Why do I care if the landlord gets their check on time. Go, why do I care? Why do I care if new supply is going up or not? Because you know something, my rent's frozen.
Yeah.
And I was moving in a couple years anyhow. In terms of grocery stores, so what? I can't afford the luxury stuff. All I want's a decent head of lettuce every now and again. What do I care? And that's the whole thing. The truth is, I've said that several times. What do I care? And I think that's where we're getting with this type of stuff, where so few people believe in the American dreams. They're like, what do I care about capitalism when capitalism, one's not working for me, and by the way, I don't envision it ever working for me.
Yeah, that.
And so, not surprisingly, as a result, you kind of take a look at how are young people feeling about capitalism just in general. How is it they feel about capitalism just in general? And according to the Cato Institute, another, kind of more libertarian sort of think tank, they did some research, reported it as of May of 2025, and all told, of all the Americans that they surveyed, I forget what the set was, but 43% of Americans had a positive view of socialism. 14% had a positive view of communism. Now, okay, that's all age groups going all the way up from 18 to 29, 30 to 44, so on and so forth, 65 plus. Now, 43% approve or have a positive opinion about socialism, but in 18 to 29, 62% had a positive idea about socialism, and 14% overall positive on communism. 34% of that younger group had a positive opinion on communism. So, and these are all significantly higher than the other age groups. And it's not clear what the definition of socialism being used in the Cato Institute. It could be maybe they were just thinking of, expanded social networks and entitlements programs. But regardless, as opposed to capitalism, socialism and communism to our younger generation doesn't seem like a bad idea. Mm-hmm. And it goes to what you were talking about, because a lot of these people have not bought into the American dream, don't believe in the American dream, as I've just pointed out with the research from Pew Research. And as a result, there's got to be another alternative, and seems like socialism is winning out. Now, with that being said, if so many Americans, particularly younger Americans, don't believe in the American dream, thinking about socialism over capitalism, why does it seem so many non-Americans still believe in the American dream? And despite what's going on with recent immigration changes and what the president's currently trying to do, why does it seem like so many people are still trying to get here to have a slice of that American dream?
Well, I think it starts with that this is the feelings around it are a relative game, right? If you're coming from a place that's much worse, even the lower rungs of the U.S. American dream are much better off than where a lot of people are coming from. And so I think you have to understand that part of it. It's, hey, even the lower class, I'm better off here than I was. And then there's this almost lottery ticket option to the upside if I'm very successful that I can reach. Because I do think while it is hard to move up those quartiles, it is possible and people still believe in that, especially coming from places where things are so much worse off, where there is impossible even in some of these countries to move up in the social ladder. And
that's what I was going to mention if you had not mentioned it. While it is still difficult in the United States, even if younger people have soured on it somewhat, the way that the laws are set up, the way the system is still devised, it is still possible. I'm not going to say it's easy. It's difficult. It's damn difficult. Always been difficult, but I'd say even more difficult now, truthfully. I'm not trying to be someone that's just going, kids these days. I mean, it is more difficult now than it was. Wasn't easy when I was coming along, trust me. I mean, I didn't have my first house until I was 30. But, it does seem a little bit more difficult. But I would tell you that for people that are still trying to come here in droves, while it's difficult, it's not impossible like it is in some other places.
Yep.
You tell me that the American dream is possible in Yemen. You tell me the American dream is possible in Ethiopia. You tell me the American dream is possible throughout much of the world, and people would laugh at you. Mm-hmm. The concept of home ownership, the concept of having a couple of televisions, a relatively safe place to while you're going on vacation.
Even start a business.
Start a business. Go to a grocery store that has so much a selection of different types of food, all this type of stuff. It's a fantasy land. You know, what we experience is not normal. So I think that's, I mean, clearly the reason why so many non-Americans still believe in the American dream is because while difficult, it's still possible, whereas it's impossible in so much of the rest of the world. But if we're thinking about it in difficult, why does it seem, although it's still difficult, admittedly, why does it seem so much more, so almost impossible for younger people? Is it because maybe the messages they're receiving? Is the gap between the rich and the poor being skewed in some form or fashion? Do people think other people have gotten wealth ill-got by ill-gotten means, and they're just getting the short end of the stick through no fault of their own? They are getting screwed. And do you think social media has anything to do with any part of this?
I think it's all of those things. You know, we talk about. You'll see people on social media that everyone's out doing something, or in Europe it seems like, and I'm not. I can't afford that. That's a big chunk of it. And this plays into social media, but you see the vitriol towards founders of companies and the wealth that they have
like
for
Jeff
themselves.
Bezos.
Yeah, you know, I created a company worth $3-4 trillion. I'm not talking about Amazon. If I create a company worth $4 or $5 trillion, and I own a large chunk of that company, my wealth is going to grow, right? Yeah. But I own 10 to 20%. That means 80% of it's gone to other people. Yes. And the wealth has been created elsewhere. To a lot of people, and in my opinion, it is very wrong sentiment, but I somewhat understand it, is they think it's them someone else is getting screwed over, which is where they made their money.
Yeah, so I mean, it's what you're trying to say is and I'm just throwing these people out, but it's a good one to kind of express the concept. Elon Musk, right?
Yeah.
And let's just take Tesla, one of his companies, obviously publicly traded. You know, yeah, he started the company along with some other people. He's worth what? I mean, hundreds of billions of dollars, right? Mm-hmm. Tesla's worth in the trillions of dollars, right? So even if he's worth $400 billion or whatever he's worth, that means there's couple $1 trillion elsewhere that other people have made based off a company which he largely spearheaded and still runs. So your argument is he's made this, he's worth a lot of money. In absolute terms, it seems like monopoly money. Mm-hmm. Seems crazy anyone should be worth that much money. Even so, a lot of other people have gotten rich because of his efforts. Yeah. And as a result, he's actually shared the wealth. And that's kind of what capitalism is all about. Right? So when you're taking a look at that, and I would say, when I'm taking a look at an example like that, I'm a little bit more granular going, yeah, people see that, hate billionaires, all this talk about billionaires, but I do also think there's an element, just your good old-fashioned social media, where people get online there, and you mentioned a little bit, everyone's going to Europe, but it's like, why is everyone else's life so much better than mine? Mm-hmm. Now, like, how come they get to go out to dinner as frequently as they do? Why are all these other people living this charmed life while I'm sitting back, observing theirs? And so I think that really is skewing a lot of it. Yeah. A lot of people seeing other people achieve what might be considered the American dream, and their lives are nowhere near that. And they just put the gap in between themselves and the people that they follow on social media, and it seems insurmountable.
Yeah.
Not really understanding that what they're seeing with influencers that have the 1 million followers, hell, even have the 200,000 followers or 50,000 followers, those are by far the exceptions rather than the rules.
Right.
The vast majority of Americans, are not living those lifestyles. So you take a look at that. I think social media does play a part of this, and why folks don't believe in the American dream quite to the degree that they used to. So one last question, then we got to wrap it up. We've already gone on a little bit. What is the likelihood, particularly in New York, Mr. Mandami, all of his grand economic pronouncements, what is the likelihood that it's going to produce the results that he has promised?
I think it's pretty close to zero. I won't say zero, but I will say pretty close to zero. And I think part of it, you just have to back out. This is not even about his policies. It's about the power that this office holds. It seems like we have accepted that the New York mayor is this almighty and powerful person where, the governor has come in and already stated, I can't do some of these things. He promised these things, we can't do it. Well, it kind of shuts this down, right?
Well, I mean, we'll see what Albany has to say, but if Albany gives a thumbs up and they're going to be a political quandary here, But I'd say the likelihood of government greater involvement, delivering the results that Dominic has promised, I'd say I'm going to take trade in perspectives here. I'm going to say it's absolutely close to 100%.
Okay, wow.
I'm going to say it's absolutely 100%.
You think he gets the free buses?
Well, I'm going to say he's going to get the free buses. People are going to love that. I'm going to say the rent control people are going to love that. And you know something? For that person that voted for him for those things, they're going to love that type of stuff. Never mind the fact that they're not going to be able to pay for all this. And 5 years down the road, it creates far bigger problems. But in the short term, it's going to work out pretty well for those people that wanted it. Because the money's going to dry up. And the reason for that is quite simple. If you put a price ceiling on anything, right? You put a price ceiling on anything, you'll ultimately end up with a shortage. According to Econ 101, right?
If the clearing price is above the...
If the clearing price is above where the ceiling is, you will end up with a shortage because the demand will be far greater than the supply being offered at the ceiling price, right?
Yep.
So if you set the ceiling price at zero, how much demand is there going to be as long as people value the service at least 1 penny?
It's not going to be good.
No, I mean, people demand a lot of it.
Yeah.
But the supply of it isn't going to be able to keep up with the demand.
Right.
So as a result, there's going to be a shortage of everything. And we've seen this before in other socialist countries. When you put the ceiling, make everything free, that's essentially a price ceiling. Yeah, there's a shortage, absolute shortage. And so in the short term, until that demand fully swamps the supply, guess what? People are going to love it. For the first 18 months, 24 months, they're going to think it's swell. And then, when the super doesn't get around to fixing the leak quite as rapidly, when you can't find the landlord to fix the hole in the wall, in the roof or what have you, and when that type of stuff happens, when there are fewer buses because they break down and you can't replace them, that's all of a sudden when you're going to start having problems. And people aren't going to like it terribly much, but it's not going to happen next year. It's not going to happen the year after that. It's going to take a couple of years. So I might be trading perspectives with you on that.
I guess we'll wait and see.
We'll wait and see. Guys, all right. Thank you all so much for listening. We always love to hear from you. Also, if you have any comments or questions, please, by all means, let us know. As always, you can drop us a line at tradingperspectives@oakworth.com, or you can leave us a review on the podcast outlet of your choice. Of course, if you're interested in reading more, hearing more of what we've got to say or how we think, you can always go to oakworth.com, OAKWORTH.com, take a look underneath the Thought Leadership tab and find access to all kinds of exciting information, including links to previous Trading Perspectives podcasts, links to our newsletter /blog Common Sense, as well as our quarterly analysis and all the various individual components and other pieces by our advisory services group headed up by Mac Frazier, as well as stuff by our client advisors. Whew, said that rapidly. Sam, what else you got to say about this exciting topic?
That's all I've got.
That's all I've got today, too. Y'all take care.